The Wellington Grand, one of New York's most prestigious hotels, shimmered beneath the mid-afternoon Sunday. Inside the marble lobby, Richard Harrison, 48, the hotel's general manager, rehearsed his greeting for the 100th time. This was no ordinary guest arriving today. It was Victor Jang, 62, a billionaire investor whose decisions could change the fate of entire companies. Harrison's rise from front desk clerk to manager had taken decades of relentless work, and this meeting might finally secure his long-dreamed corporate promotion. Yet beneath his polished suit and confident smile, anxiety gnawed at him. He straightened his tie in the mirror, telling himself everything was under control. The chandeliers glowed, the staff lined up, and every detail was perfect. At least, that's what Harrison wanted to believe. What he didn't know was that a single overlooked decision would turn this flawless day into a nightmare. In the final staff briefing, Harrison's tone was sharp, commanding. Remember, Mr. Jang's visit today could decide the hotel's future. Everything must be flawless. Heads nodded as department leaders confirmed last-minute details. The chef's special menu, the exact temperature of the presidential suite, the VIP limousine arrangements. A younger manager timidly asked, "Sir, should we arrange for a Mandarin interpreter? I've heard Mr. Jang prefers doing business in his native language." Harrison waved the concern away. His assistant assured me he speaks excellent English. Besides, our translation app is top of the line. He tapped his smartphone proudly, convinced technology would fill any gap. Around him, nervous glances passed among the staff. But Harrison silenced them with authority. Focus on appearances, housekeeping staff. Remain invisible. No one should even notice you. In his mind, every potential risk had been neutralized. Except, of course, the very one he refused to consider. At exactly 2 p.m., a sleek convoy of black SUVs pulled into the hotel's circular driveway. Staff straightened their jackets, plastering on their best professional smiles. Harrison positioned himself front and center, heart pounding as the doorman opened the car door. Victor Jang stepped out, sharp in a tailored suit, his presence commanding instant respect. 6 associates followed, portfolios in hand, their eyes scanning the opulent lobby like inspectors. Harrison extended his hand confidently. "Welcome to the Wellington, Mr. Jang." But instead of English, Jang launched into rapid, elegant Mandarin. His tone clipped with precision. Harrison froze. The words were meaningless to him. Yet the intensity in Jang's expression told him it was more than a polite greeting. Panic rippled through his chest as sweat formed at his temple. Around them, the lobby fell silent. Harrison's grand moment had just begun, and already he was sinking. While executives in tailored suits fussed over details and greeted guests with nervous smiles, Olivia Thomas, 32, quietly moved down the East Wing corridor, pushing her housekeeping cart. To most, she was invisible. Just another uniformed worker making beds and polishing fixtures. Her gray tunic and sensible shoes marked her as background, someone to be ignored while the spotlight fell on the important men. But Olivia had learned to embrace invisibility. It allowed her to observe without being noticed, to hear what others never realized she understood. As she sprayed polish across a glass table, her ears caught the faint sound of Mandarin flowing from the lobby. She paused, her hand still. She understood every word. The billionaire's comments about the hotel's cultural blind spots cut through her like a knife. Invisible she might be, but not ignorant. In that moment, she felt a quiet stirring of conflict inside her. Olivia's backstory was one few in the hotel would ever imagine. Years earlier, she had studied abroad at Beijing University, earning a master's degree in international business and East Asian linguistics. Fluent in Mandarin, conversant in Cantonese and Japanese, she had dreamed of working in global commerce. But 300 job applications and countless rejection letters had whittled those dreams into survival. Student loans loomed, bills piled up, and when Wellington Palace advertised for housekeeping, she had reluctantly taken the position. Temporary, she had told herself. 4 years later, temporary had stretched into permanent. Every day she tidied the suites of diplomats, CEOs, and investors, silently translating their conversations in her head while she scrubbed their sinks. She had trained herself to blend into the wallpaper, a ghost in a palace of glass. Yet hearing Jang's words now, she felt a pang of longing for the life she had prepared for, but never lived. At that moment, Olivia walked her cart past the lobby perimeter, careful to remain unnoticed as the billionaire's entourage entered. Harrison's face had paled, his confident smile frozen in place. She understood enough Mandarin to know Jang's first impression. The hotel seemed grand, but its leadership appeared unprepared for international standards. Olivia's chest tightened with frustration. She had the knowledge to turn this disaster around, yet she was trapped by the expectations of her uniform. She thought of her diploma tucked away in a dusty box, of the Mandarin journals she still read during breaks, of the interviews that never turned into job offers. For years, she had hidden her light, protecting herself from rejection and ridicule. But as she glanced at Harrison fumbling with his phone, her heart raced. Could this be the moment? No, she forced herself back into the shadows. She was only housekeeping. At least, for now. In the executive conference room, tension mounted as Harrison attempted to steady his trembling hands. He had rehearsed this presentation for weeks, but nothing had prepared him for the torrent of Mandarin from Mr. Jang. Desperate, he pulled out his smartphone, loading the translation app he had bragged about. He spoke slowly into the device, forcing a smile as it processed. The robotic voice that emerged mangled the Mandarin so badly that Jang's associates exchanged suppressed laughs. Harrison's stomach twisted. Sweat trickled beneath his collar as he tried again, this time speaking even more carefully. The phone spat out a broken sentence about chicken tax and mooncake hotels. The absurdity was undeniable. Mr. Jang's expression darkened, his patience visibly thinning. The very technology Harrison had counted on was humiliating him, and every second that passed felt like another nail in his professional coffin. Around the table, Wellington's executive team shifted uncomfortably, their polished confidence crumbling under pressure. The finance director whispered suggestions about stalling until a translator could be located. The marketing manager proposed focusing on visuals instead of speech, hoping to sidestep the language barrier. The IT specialist mumbled something about connection issues, insisting the app wasn't designed for technical business terms. But none of these stopgaps mattered. The damage was already spreading. Mr. Jang leaned back in his chair, speaking rapidly to his associates, who nodded gravely. Miss Lin, his assistant, offered partial translations, but the nuance was lost. Harrison, panicked, begged for 5 minutes to reorganize. To Jang, however, the request reeked of unpreparedness. In a deal worth hundreds of millions, time was money. And in that moment, Wellington's leadership looked less like professionals and more like amateurs scrambling to survive a disaster of their own making. Outside in the hallway, Olivia continued polishing a brass railing, her motions slow, deliberate, but her ears caught everything through the conference room door left slightly ajar. She understood Mr. Jang's pointed questions about zoning laws, foreign tax regulations, and cross-border hospitality investments, topics she had studied extensively. Each mistranslation from Harrison's app made her wince. The investors weren't just irritated, they were questioning the hotel's competence, its readiness for global business. Olivia's chest tightened with both empathy and frustration. She wanted to step in, to save the meeting spiraling toward ruin. Yet memories of past reprimands echoed in her mind. Stay in your lane. Guests get uncomfortable when staff overstep. Her hands gripped the cloth tighter, torn between fear and a growing conviction. She was the only person in the building who truly understood. But could she risk revealing herself now? Or would silence once again define her? As Harrison scrambled inside the conference room, Olivia lingered just beyond the glass panel, the brass railing gleaming under her cloth. Her mind wandered back to nights spent hunched over textbooks in a cramped Beijing apartment, memorizing financial terminology in Mandarin. She had once dreamed of sitting at the very table she now cleaned around. But reality had written a harsher script. 4 years of rejection letters had convinced her that her skills were invisible, dismissed because they did not fit neatly into the roles employers imagined for her. She had learned to hide her brilliance, to survive by silence. Yet watching Harrison's confidence unravel now, she felt the sting of wasted potential more than ever. A bitter truth echoed in her chest. She was more qualified for this conversation than anyone inside, Yet she was standing outside, unseen, wearing a uniform that told the world otherwise. The memory of her previous job returned vividly. At another luxury hotel, she had once stepped forward to assist Japanese tourists when a translator was late. Rather than being praised, she had been reprimanded by management for making guests uncomfortable with her unexpected skill. "Stay in your lane," her supervisor had warned, his words sharp as glass. That humiliation had taught her the cruel lesson of invisibility. Since then, she had hidden her talents behind polite smiles and practiced obedience, polishing silver while suppressing the part of her that longed to be recognized. Yet as the muffled chaos inside the conference room intensified, the familiar fear clashed with something stronger, a deep, rising conviction. She could not endure another moment of watching her education gather dust while incompetence destroyed an opportunity right in front of her eyes. Through the crack of the door, Olivia saw Harrison fumbling once more, the translation app sputtering nonsense while Mr. Jang's associates exchanged weary looks. She could almost predict the outcome. Jang would leave, Wellington would lose the deal, and Harrison's career would collapse. But more importantly, Olivia realized her own chance would vanish too. If Jang walked away, so would the possibility of ever stepping beyond the boundaries of her housekeeping cart. The weight of decision pressed upon her chest like a stone. Her pulse quickened. She straightened her shoulders, feeling years of invisibility crash against the present moment. She had a choice: remain in the shadows and let the failure unfold, or step forward and risk everything: her job, her dignity, even her livelihood. Olivia's breath steadied. For the first time in years, she considered breaking the silence that had defined her life. Inside the conference room, Harrison's voice cracked as he begged for a few more minutes, but Mr. Jang's patience was unraveling fast. His associates were already closing their leather portfolios, murmuring in Mandarin about wasted time. Harrison's dreams of promotion were dissolving before his eyes. Just outside the door, Olivia's heart thundered against her ribs. Every fiber of her being screamed to stay silent, to avoid drawing attention. But something stronger pulsed through her. The memory of her student loans, the rejection letters, the countless nights spent studying Mandarin business law while believing it would all matter one day. That day, she realized, had finally arrived. Her palms sweaty, she pulled off her cleaning gloves, slipped them into her pocket, and straightened her posture. With a steadying breath, she pushed open the heavy door. Conversation stopped instantly. Every head turned. The maid had just walked into the spotlight. Harrison's eyes flared with disbelief as he saw Olivia step forward in her gray housekeeping uniform. "Not now," he hissed, making a sharp gesture to dismiss her. But Olivia didn't look at him. Instead, she faced Mr. Jang directly, bowing her head slightly in respect. Then, with flawless intonation, she spoke in precise Mandarin. "Respected Mr. Jang, I couldn't help but overhear your questions about foreign investment regulations. Perhaps I may offer some assistance." The room froze. Harrison's mouth opened, then closed again, unable to comprehend what was happening. Mr. Jang's eyebrows lifted in surprise, the first genuine emotion he had shown all day. His associates leaned forward, intrigued. The maid had just spoken their language perfectly. Olivia's voice was calm, unshaken, carrying the quiet authority of someone who had prepared her entire life for this exact moment. For the first time, she was no longer invisible. Jang exchanged a rapid line of Mandarin with his team before turning back to Olivia, his eyes sharp but curious. "Your Mandarin is exceptional," he replied, deliberately inserting obscure financial jargon to test her. Without missing a beat, Olivia responded fluently, citing municipal zoning codes and international tax implications with academic precision. Gasps rippled across the room as executives realized she wasn't just parroting phrases she understood. Harrison stood paralyzed, his authority slipping through his fingers with each sentence Olivia delivered. The billionaire's demeanor shifted from skepticism to genuine engagement, his once stern face softening with interest. Olivia had done more than interrupt a failing meeting. She had rewritten its script entirely. From maid to unexpected savior, she stood at the center of the table, commanding attention with nothing more than the truth of her hidden skill. The bold step had been taken, and there was no turning back. Mr. Jang leaned forward, his eyes narrowing with interest as he studied the maid who had just shifted the entire room's energy. "Tell me," he said in Mandarin, weaving complex financial terminology into his question, "how do the city's new vertical zoning allowances affect mixed-use developments in this district?" His words carried the weight of a deliberate challenge. Olivia inhaled deeply, her academic training rising to the surface. She responded with clarity, citing specific municipal codes and drawing comparisons to regulations in Shanghai and Beijing. The cadence of her Mandarin was not only accurate but elegant, the kind of fluency that comes from years of immersion. Jang's associates began scribbling notes, their skepticism fading into recognition. Harrison, meanwhile, felt the floor tilt beneath him. Every second Olivia spoke was a reminder of the glaring oversight he had made by dismissing her. The room had a new authority, and it wasn't his. The dialogue grew sharper, faster. Jang asked about cross-border tax implications, foreign investment structures, and cultural adaptation in luxury hospitality. Olivia answered each question with poised precision, offering insight beyond translation. She explained how Chinese business travelers valued certain accommodations, like multi-generational suites and integrated payment systems such as WeChat Pay concepts that had never even crossed Harrison's mind. Each response Olivia gave seemed to unlock a door, shifting the atmosphere from tense suspicion to genuine collaboration. Jang's expression softened, and for the first time, he smiled. The executives seated along the table glanced at one another in astonishment. The maid wasn't just translating. She was guiding the conversation, rescuing a meeting that had been seconds away from collapse. For the first time since arriving at the Wellington, Jang appeared not just interested, but impressed. And the reason for his shift in attitude was wearing a gray housekeeping uniform. Harrison tried to interject, attempting to redirect the discussion back to his carefully prepared slides. "Perhaps we should continue with the presentation," he said tightly, waving his remote at the projector screen. But Jang didn't even glance at him. His attention remained locked on Olivia, who now commanded the room with her quiet confidence. She offered analysis on how zoning laws could be leveraged to maximize hotel revenue while aligning with Chinese cultural preferences, weaving her explanation seamlessly between Mandarin and English so everyone could follow. The executives, once skeptical, now hung on her every word. Harrison clenched his jaw, realizing too late that his meticulously planned performance had been hijacked by the one person he had deemed invisible. Yet the investors weren't concerned with his loss of control. They were captivated by Olivia, the unexpected voice who had turned disaster into opportunity. The dialogue had transformed everything. The atmosphere in the conference room shifted dramatically. Only minutes earlier, the tension had been suffocating, but now the energy pulsed with renewed possibility. "Mr." Jang leaned forward, gesturing for Olivia to elaborate further on her ideas. She outlined strategies the hotel could adopt to better serve Chinese business travelers, designated tea service areas, suites designed for extended families, and integration of popular Asian payment systems. Jang's associates nodded in agreement, one of them even murmuring, "This is exactly what we've been waiting to hear." Harrison's face drained of color as he realized that the ideas captivating his investors weren't his, but those of the maid he had tried to keep invisible. The executives sitting along the walls scribbled frantic notes, caught between admiration and disbelief. For the first time in years, Olivia felt the weight of eyes upon her not with dismissal, but with respect. Jang began to test Olivia with broader questions about global hospitality trends, asking how American hotels could adapt to meet Asian expectations without losing their cultural identity. Olivia answered fluidly, citing examples from her academic research and experiences living in Beijing. She described the importance of feng shui in hotel design, the value of privacy in suite layouts, and the symbolism of water features in Chinese culture. The investors listened intently, their pens racing to capture her words. Even Miss Lin, Jang's professional translator, watched Olivia with a mixture of surprise and respect, realizing her role had quietly been replaced. Harrison sat stiffly at the head of the table, his presentation remote, useless in his hand. He could no longer deny what was happening. The meeting belonged to Olivia now. She was no longer the maid in the background. She was the voice saving his hotel's future. As Olivia spoke, Jang's expression transformed. The stern mask he had worn since stepping into the Wellington softened into something warmer, almost amused. He leaned back in his chair, folding his hands as if enjoying the rare experience of genuine insight. "You understand," he said in Mandarin. "Not just the language, but the culture." His associates nodded, their earlier skepticism replaced with admiration. The executives exchanged uneasy glances, but even they could not deny the truth. Olivia was the only reason the deal still had a chance. Harrison forced a brittle smile, attempting to reclaim control. "Yes, well, we are fortunate to have such hidden talent among our staff," he muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. Olivia, meanwhile, felt her pulse steady. For years, she had been invisible. Now, in this unexpected moment, she stood at the center of recognition, her true self finally beginning to emerge. Harrison cleared his throat, determined to reassert authority. "Let's return to the presentation," he said tightly, clicking the remote to project his slides filled with revenue charts and market forecasts. But Mr. Jang barely glanced at them. His gaze remained fixed on Olivia, as though the polished numbers on the screen meant little compared to her insights. Harrison's frustration mounted. He had spent weeks crafting this pitch, and now it was being overshadowed by a woman in a housekeeping uniform. "Miss Thomas will translate my points moving forward," he added sharply, attempting to confine her role, but Jang raised a hand, silencing him. "I prefer to continue our conversation directly," he said in Mandarin, his voice firm. Harrison's jaw tightened as reality sank in. The meeting was no longer his to control. The turning point had arrived, and the future of the Wellington now rested on Olivia's shoulders. With Harrison sidelined, Olivia leaned into her moment. Jang asked about regulatory changes affecting foreign investment, and she answered confidently, explaining how the city's new tax abatement program could benefit projects integrating cultural exchange elements. She compared the incentives to similar initiatives in Shanghai and Shenzhen, grounding her explanation in hard data. Jang's associates scribbled notes furiously, nodding as she spoke. For the first time since stepping into the hotel, the billionaire smiled genuinely. The air in the room shifted from skeptical tension to collaborative possibility. Olivia could feel the weight of years of invisibility lifting with every word she spoke. Her voice wasn't just being heard, it was shaping the very future of the hotel. She glanced around the room, catching the stunned looks of executives who had dismissed her as invisible. Their shock no longer intimidated her. Instead, it fueled her resolve. She belonged here. By the time Olivia finished addressing Jang's concerns, the room had transformed. The nervous energy that had once threatened to unravel the meeting was replaced with optimism and curiosity. Jang leaned forward, his tone lighter now, as he invited Olivia to share her perspective on how American hotels could adapt to Chinese luxury expectations. She spoke with conviction, weaving together academic knowledge, cultural understanding, and personal experience. Even Miss Lin, who had started the meeting as Jang's translator, now sat back quietly, acknowledging Olivia's command of the discussion. Harrison, pale and silent, realized the truth. What he had feared as disaster had become salvation, but not through him. The maid he had ordered to remain invisible had rescued everything. It was more than just a turning point in the meeting. It was a turning point in Olivia's life. The future was no longer slipping away. It was opening wide before her. As the conversation wound down, Mr. Jang leaned back, folding his hands thoughtfully. The tension that had once clouded the room had dissolved into a hum of possibility. He turned his gaze to Olivia, studying her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. "Miss Thomas," he said in measured English, "your insights have been invaluable today." He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a sleek black card embossed in gold. With both hands he extended it to her in the traditional Chinese manner. The room fell silent as Olivia accepted it, recognizing the gesture's weight. This was not an ordinary business card. It was his personal contact information, reserved only for those he deemed truly exceptional. Harrison's eyes widened, the color draining from his face. In that moment it became clear. Jang was offering Olivia a door into a world far beyond the confines of housekeeping. The executives exchanged bewildered glances, unsure how to process what they had just witnessed. Jang continued, switching back to Mandarin, as if to emphasize the intimacy of his words. "A person with your qualifications should not be polishing floors," he told Olivia. "In my company, we actively search for hidden talent like yours. I believe you could thrive in international relations, bridging cultures, shaping strategy, guiding partnerships." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. The surreal contrast between her gray uniform and the possibility now shimmering before her nearly overwhelmed her. For years, her dreams had been buried under rejection letters and minimum wage shifts. Now, here was one of the world's most powerful investors acknowledging her worth. She bowed slightly, her voice steady, despite the emotion welling inside her. "Thank you, Mr. Jang. It would be an honor to serve in such a role." Harrison forced a smile, attempting to mask the storm raging within him. "Of course," he said quickly. "We've always valued Miss Thomas's unique skills." But the hollowness of his words was obvious to everyone. Jang shifted his gaze to him, his voice cool but direct. "Mr. Harrison, it concerns me that such talent has been overlooked here. In a global economy, failing to recognize the strengths of your own people is a costly mistake." The rebuke landed with surgical precision. The executives shifted uncomfortably, realizing they had been complicit in dismissing Olivia for years. For the first time, Harrison had no retort. Olivia, still holding the black card in her hand, felt a swell of dignity she hadn't known in years. This was more than a personal victory, it was vindication. She was no longer invisible. She was the woman who had saved the deal, and the world had finally seen her. 1 month later, Olivia stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor of the Wellington Grand. Gone was the gray housekeeping uniform. In its place, a tailored navy suit that fit her like armor of dignity. The badge clipped to her lapel now read Director of International Guest Relations. As she walked through the marble halls, staff who once looked through her now nodded respectfully, some even with admiration. Her office overlooked the skyline she had once only glimpsed while cleaning windows. On her desk sat 2 framed items, her master's degree from Beijing University and the black card Jang had given her, a reminder of the day her hidden worth was finally revealed. Olivia smiled to herself. Her journey from invisibility to recognition was not just personal, it had sparked something larger, something that could reshape the hotel's culture forever. The Wellington had since launched a new program, called the Hidden Talents Initiative. Inspired by Olivia's story, the hotel began surveying staff across all departments, asking them to share skills, education, and languages that went beyond their daily tasks. To Harrison's astonishment, nearly half of his employees reported abilities far exceeding their current roles. A dishwasher fluent in French, a security guard studying computer science, a bellhop with a degree in accounting, all were suddenly visible in ways they had never been before. Olivia stood at the head of the first training session, speaking confidently to a group of 30 employees. "Excellence in service begins with recognizing the excellence already within us," she said. For the first time in her career, she wasn't cleaning rooms for the powerful. She was empowering others to step out of the shadows, just as she had. That evening, Olivia walked through the hotel lobby as a delegation of Chinese business travelers arrived. She greeted them fluently in Mandarin, explaining the new amenities designed specifically with their cultural expectations in mind: tea service rooms, multi-generational suites, and seamless WeChat payment integration. The guests smiled warmly, clearly impressed. Watching from the mezzanine, Harrison finally acknowledged the truth he had resisted. Olivia wasn't just a stroke of luck. She was proof that talent often hides in plain sight, waiting for the chance to shine. As Olivia watched the guests ascend to their rooms, she reflected on her journey. Her invisibility was gone. She was seen, valued, and entrusted with shaping the hotel's future. More than that, she carried the responsibility of ensuring that no other hidden gem would remain overlooked again. If this story touched you, don't let it stop here. At Soul Touch Short Stories, we believe every life hides extraordinary moments waiting to be discovered. Olivia's journey reminds us that recognition can change not only a career, but an entire future. Somewhere around you, someone's hidden gift may be waiting for its moment to shine. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring short stories that reveal the extraordinary within the ordinary. Turn on notifications, leave us a comment, and share this video with someone who might need hope today. Your story could be next.